Story 1. They warned me about apartment 305. I moved into apartment 305 in late January. The listing said, cozy efficiency, utilities included, no credit check. At the time, I didn't care how sketchy that sounded, I just needed out of my roommate's place before things got worse between us. Rent was $800 flat, which felt almost illegal for downtown. The landlord, Mr. Devlin, met me outside the building on move-in day. Late 60s, brittle voice, dark coat even though it was weirdly warm for winter. He didn't smile. Just walked me up to the third floor, handed me the key, and said, and I remember this word for word. If anything strange happens, don't open the bedroom door. Just wait it out. I kind of laughed. Thought maybe he was trying to be funny. He wasn't. The building had that look, 4 stories of stained concrete and gray window units, the kind of place where you expect to find a mattress in the hallway. But inside, it was cleaner than I thought. A little run down, sure. Buzzing fluorescent lights, faded linoleum, heavy smell of curry and bleach. But nothing that set off alarms. Unit 305 was at the end of the hall. It was small, one room with a sink, a tiny bathroom, and a door leading to the bedroom. The only window faced a brick wall. The carpet was that grayish-green that hides dirt. Still, I remember thinking, it's not bad. I was alone. That was enough. The first few nights were fine. Quiet, even. Unusually quiet. I noticed it right away, no footsteps, no TVs, no plumbing noises from the neighbors. I figured maybe the walls were just thick, or everyone on my floor worked nights. Then, on the 4th night, I heard something. I was almost asleep when I caught it, a knock. Not at the front door. From inside the apartment. 3 slow knocks, coming from behind the wall in the bedroom. I froze. Waited. Nothing. I told myself it had to be the pipes or maybe heat settling, but it didn't sound metallic. It sounded heavy. Intentional. Like a fist, not a machine. The next morning, I ran into a woman from down the hall walking a little white dog that looked too clean for this place. She gave me that look, the kind people give new tenants who don't know better yet. I asked, casually, hey, do you know who lives next to me? In 307. She stopped. Looked right at me. No one. Not for a long time. She started walking again before I could ask anything else. That night, I noticed something else. When I stepped into the bedroom, I could feel it. The temperature dropped. Not like drafty, like walking into a meat locker. I held my hand to the wall where I'd heard the knocking. It was ice cold. Just for the hell of it, I texted Mr. Devlin. Hey, is there something up with the bedroom wall? Cold air maybe. He replied 2 hours later, one line. You're not in danger. Just don't talk to it. That was it. No punctuation. No explanation. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at that wall, waiting for something I couldn't name. After that text, I stopped asking Mr. Devlin questions. Honestly, I stopped talking to anyone in the building. I just kept my head down, went to work, came home, locked the door. But the apartment, it wasn't done with me. It started with the cold. The kind that seeps into your joints, into your chest. I bought a space heater and let it run all night in the bedroom, but it barely made a difference. The rest of the unit was fine, just the bedroom, just that one wall. Always that wall. Then came the breathing. That's the only way I can describe it. Around 3 a.m. every night, I'd wake up to this soft, rhythmic sound coming from the bedroom wall. It was quiet, almost like a draft, but too steady, too human. Inhale, pause, exhale. I pressed my ear to the wall once. The pattern was unmistakable. I tried recording it on my phone. Sat in the dark for 30 minutes with the mic aimed at the wall. Playback caught nothing but static. After that, I stopped sleeping in the bedroom. I moved to the couch, pulled the cushions off, stacked blankets. But even from the living room, I could feel it at night. That invisible pressure, like something watching from the other side of the drywall. One night, I lost it. I was tired, pissed, anxious, everything all at once. I stood in the bedroom and knocked. 3 times. Same spot where I'd heard it first. I don't know what I expected. Maybe nothing. Maybe proof. But 3 seconds later, it knocked back. Same rhythm. Same weight. 3 slow, solid knocks. I stumbled back. My knees hit the edge of the bed. Then I heard it, a whisper. Faint, like it was buried behind insulation. I'm still here. I left the apartment without shoes. Slept in my car in a CVS parking lot. Every shadow on the sidewalk made me flinch. The next morning, when I worked up the nerve to return, there was a note under my door. No envelope. Just a ripped scrap of notebook paper. It likes attention. Stop feeding it. 307. I stood there frozen, heart racing. 307, the apartment next to mine. The one the dog lady said was empty. I knocked on that door. Nothing. I knocked again. Still nothing. The peephole was stuffed with tissue. The door handle had cobwebs on it. I pressed my ear to the wood, not a sound. I went down to the lobby and asked the building manager about it. He frowned, like I'd asked something stupid. That unit's been sealed since 2011, he said. Fire damage. Water too. The lady who lived there, she disappeared. I asked what he meant. She called 911, he said. Right before the alarms went off. Operator said she whispered something about a presence in her wall. Something that was, getting closer. I asked if they ever found her. He shook his head. Place was empty. Just scorch marks on the wall and something written in the ash. It said, "Let me in." I should have broken the lease. Should have packed a bag and left. But the rent was cheap, and I kept telling myself I was imagining it. Lack of sleep. Anxiety. Some kind of ambient noise from the old pipes. I told myself a lot of things, just to avoid the truth. But something changed after the knockback. It was like I'd invited it in just by acknowledging it. I stopped dreaming. Or at least, I couldn't remember dreams. I'd just wake up feeling disoriented, sometimes facing the wrong way on the couch, or with my arms crossed over my chest like a corpse. One time I woke up with the bedroom door open, even though I always locked it. That was the worst part, I didn't hear it open. I just knew it had been closed the night before. And the cold kept spreading. It wasn't just the bedroom anymore. The living room would be freezing some mornings. My plant started dying. The mirror above the sink cracked from the inside, even though nothing touched it. And the spiral marks started showing up. First, on the bedroom wall, little scratches, shallow, in tight looping patterns. I thought it was just old damage I hadn't noticed before. Then I found the same pattern scratched into the wood of the closet door. Then the inside of the fridge. And then I found it on my own skin. Woke up one morning with thin red lines curling around my shoulder. Not deep, just raised, irritated, like I'd slept on wire. But when I stood in the mirror and traced them, I realized they formed part of the spiral. I went back to the landlord, furious. Demanded he explain what the hell was going on. He just looked at me, not surprised, not sorry. Some apartments, they don't forget the people who lived in them, he said. Especially when they never left. I asked him who had lived in 305 before me. He sighed. Said, that unit used to be part of 307, back before the wall went up. One big apartment. She used to sleep where your bed is now. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat on the couch with every light on, shivering, staring at the closed bedroom door. Around 2:45, the air changed. You ever feel that thing where the room gets heavier? Like the molecules shift, and you just know something's in there with you. At 3:01, the knocking started. 3 slow knocks. But not on the wall this time. On the bedroom door. My heart froze. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then, the handle turned. Slowly. Quietly. Like someone testing it. I backed toward the front door, trying not to make a sound. From behind the bedroom door, I heard it again, a whisper, clearer this time. "Let me in." That was it. I grabbed my keys, ran out in socks and a hoodie, and didn't stop moving until I hit the parking lot. I slept in a 24-hour laundromat that night. Never went back to the apartment. A week later, I broke the lease. Paid the penalty. Mr. Devlin didn't argue. He just handed me the paperwork and said, "It usually stops when people leave. Just don't answer it. Not ever." I moved across town. Different building. Different everything. But the other night, I woke up at 3:03 a.m. No reason. Just sat up, heart pounding. The apartment was dead silent. No pipes, no hum from the fridge. Just silence. Then I heard it. 3 knocks. Slow. Heavy. From behind my bedroom wall. Story 2. She only worked night shift once. I took the night shift for the money. That's all it was. I was a nursing student, just started rotations, and one of the RNs at St. Clair's said they needed coverage, 1 night only, she promised. Just monitor the East Wing, check vitals, help with meds. It sounded simple. The East Wing was the old part of the hospital, mostly empty now. Just 6 or 7 long-term patients they hadn't moved over to the newer building. The halls were wider there, the floors that weird yellow tile from the 70s. Every step echoed too much. Before my shift started, I met Ms. Dana, the charge nurse. Late 40s, tired but kind. She gave me a flashlight and an old clipboard. "Don't worry," she said, "you probably won't even have to go into most rooms. Just keep an eye on 228. "Why that one?" I asked. She hesitated, then said, "He gets restless." That was it. It wasn't until later, around 2 a.m., when I finally made my way down to 228. The rest of the wing was quiet, too quiet, even for a hospital. I kept checking the hallway windows, but it was all dark glass and blackness outside. The kind that reflects only yourself. Room 228 was at the far end. No name on the door. Just the number in peeling gold letters. I knocked softly and pushed it open. The lights were off. There was a man lying in the bed, elderly, frail, maybe mid-80s. His eyes were open. He was staring at the ceiling. I stepped closer. "Hi, sir. Just here to check your vitals, okay?" He didn't move. Didn't blink. His skin was pale, but not unhealthy. The monitor beside the bed showed a pulse, slow, steady. I gently took his wrist, felt the beat. Cool skin. Eyes still open. Then he whispered something. It was so soft I had to lean in. "Don't let him in." I pulled back. "I'm sorry." But he didn't respond. His eyes drifted closed, and his breathing evened out. Like he hadn't said anything at all. Back at the nurse's station, I wrote down the time and observation. Ms. Dana looked up from her crossword and asked, "Did he talk to you?" I hesitated. "Yeah." He said, something about not letting someone in. She went quiet. Then she said, "Don't take it personally. He's confused. Dementia." But the way she said it, too fast, too practiced, made my stomach knot. I didn't sleep that day. Even after my shift ended. I just lay in bed with the blinds closed, thinking about that hallway. About that voice. And the strange thing is, I couldn't remember opening the door to room 228. I could swear it was already ajar. I wasn't supposed to go back. It was a one-time shift. One and done. But the next week, they called again. Said they were short, and I already had clearance. It'd be the same wing, same hours. I should have said no. But I didn't. When I arrived, Dana wasn't there. A different nurse, Marcus, handed me the chart and said, "Keep an eye on 228. He's been active lately." Same words. Same tone. Like they were reading from a script. By 1:30 a.m., the halls felt colder than before. I thought maybe the HVAC wasn't working right, but only the east wing felt it, that dry, metallic chill that clings to your skin. I checked 228 again. The door was already open. Not wide, but just enough to see the edge of the bed. He was awake again. Eyes wide. Same position. Staring. When I walked in, I noticed something new. There was a second chair in the room now. Right next to the bed. One of those old metal frame hospital chairs with green vinyl, the kind they don't even use anymore. I didn't remember it from last time. He didn't speak at first. I took his vitals, still stable. Cold skin, slow pulse. Then, just as I turned to leave, he whispered. "He sits there when you're gone." I froze. "Who?" I asked. But the man just closed his eyes. Same as before. I left the room fast. Back at the station, I flipped through the patient chart, trying to find his name. But the front page was gone. The ID sticker was torn off. Every vital note was signed with initials I didn't recognize, AS. I asked Marcus, who had been assigned to 228 before me. He frowned. "No one. That room's been off rotation for weeks." That made no sense. I told him I'd checked the patient. Twice. Marcus looked genuinely confused. "That room shouldn't be occupied," he said. "There's no chart for 228. He walked off to check. I stayed behind and flipped through the chart again. That's when I noticed something I hadn't before. The notes weren't all in the same handwriting. Some lines looked older, faded ink, yellowed paper. But some were fresh. Fresh enough that the pen had pressed through. I turned to the last page. There, in shaky, careful handwriting, was a single line. "He wears your face now." I dropped the clipboard. When Marcus came back, he said the room was empty. We went together to check. I swear to God, the bed was made. The monitor was off. There were no chairs. No signs anyone had been there. I didn't understand. I walked out of that wing with my hands shaking. As I reached the elevator, I passed one of the hallway windows. Something made me glance. And I saw my own reflection, standing still, staring back. But I hadn't stopped walking. I called out the next 2 shifts. Couldn't bring myself to go back. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that empty chair. That reflection. I emailed the program coordinator and asked if I could switch to a different facility. She said St. Clair's had already sent in a note about my excellent initiative, and had formally requested me again for the East Wing. I never gave them permission. And I didn't know who wrote the letter. It was signed A.S. 3 nights later, I woke up to a voicemail on my phone. No number. Just 23 seconds of silence, and then, right at the end, a soft knock. 3 times. It sounded like it was right outside my bedroom door. I moved in with my sister after that. Didn't explain much. Just said I needed a break. She set me up in her guest room, and for a while, I convinced myself it was over. Just stress. Sleep deprivation. Classic med student spiral. Then, one morning, she asked me, "Hey, did your old hospital ever have a guy who kept saying stuff about wearing faces?" I froze. "Why?" She shrugged. "You were sleep-talking last night. Kept saying, 'Don't let him wear me.'" I checked my phone again. The voicemail was gone. Deleted. No call history. But in my notes app, at the very top, was a sentence I didn't write. "He knows you're not watching anymore." The next week, I drove across town to visit St. Clair's. Just to put things to rest. To tell myself it wasn't real. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. Just parked in the lot and walked around the back toward the east wing. It was sealed. Windows boarded. Doors locked. A rusted sign half covered in ivy read, "East Wing closed permanently, October 2013. That made no sense. I'd worked there 2 weeks ago. I found Marcus's number and called. He answered, groggy, like I'd woken him up. When I asked about 228, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You saw him too?" I didn't know what to say. He continued, voice barely a whisper. "They say when the hospital closed that wing, someone got left behind. A patient. Or maybe not. Maybe something else. The nurses who saw him said he never moved, never blinked. But the reflection always did." I asked if anyone knew who he was. Marcus just said, "No chart. No name. But whoever he was, he remembers you now." I haven't gone near a hospital since. But sometimes, when I pass glass, car windows, storefronts, even the microwave, I catch my reflection looking the wrong way. Just for a split second. And once, late at night, I saw someone sitting in a chair behind me. Only for a moment. But I knew his face. Because it was mine. Story 3. Voicemail from apartment 9B. It started with a voicemail. I was in line at the store when it came through, no caller ID, no message preview. Just a silent buzz in my pocket. I didn't think twice about it. Figured it was spam. Later that night, I opened the voicemail out of habit while brushing my teeth. And I stopped cold. It was, breathing. Shaky, wet-sounding, like someone struggling to exhale. Nothing else for a few seconds. Then, right at the end, a voice. "Daniel?" That's what made my stomach drop. Because the voice belonged to Mrs. Lockwood. My old neighbor. From 9B. The one who died 3 months ago. I live in a pre-war apartment building in Brooklyn. 9 floors, all crooked charm, noisy radiators, floorboards that creak just right, and a doorman who knows too much. I'd been in 9A for years. Mrs. Lockwood lived next door. She was in her 80s. The kind of quiet old woman people stop noticing. But I noticed. I used to help her bring in groceries. Sometimes she'd sit in her doorway in a robe and slippers and just talk. Soft voice, distant eyes. Said she'd lived here since '71. Her husband died before I moved in. Then came the stroke. I didn't see her after that, only the nurse who came by every couple days. Then the niece. Then no one. I knew she passed when the front desk slipped a memo under our doors. Unit 9B, notice of vacancy. They didn't say the word death. But everyone knew. So getting a voicemail from her number in March. That didn't make sense. I still had her contact saved, Mrs. L9B, from a time she asked me to pick up milk during a blizzard. I checked the number twice. It matched. Her old texts were still there. Last one said, "You're very kind. Thank you, Daniel." Now, she was calling. I played the message again. Same slow breathing. Same whisper. Daniel. That night, I showed it to a friend. She said numbers get recycled. Probably someone new using the phone. Except I'd blocked the number. And it called again. Left another message at 3:12 a.m. This time, I heard whispering. Two voices. One near, one far. Couldn't make out much. But one word was clear. Help. I blocked it again. Deleted the message. But by morning, there was another one waiting. Even though the number was still blocked. By the end of the week, I'd received 4 more messages. All from the same number. All blocked. And every time, the voice grew, clearer. The third message was different. It started with silence, then I heard something strange, like the shuffle of slippers on tile. Then the sound of a drawer opening, slow and hesitant. And then. The hallway's dark now. That was it. I stopped sleeping properly. I kept checking the peephole every few minutes, like I expected someone to be standing outside my door. But the hallway was always empty. Still, I started noticing things. Like how my living room light would be on when I came home, even if I knew I'd turned it off. Or how my voicemail app started glitching, messages appeared, then vanished, then reappeared as partial transcripts. One line stuck with me. Don't lock it. I made a stupid decision that night. I walked down the hall and knocked on the door to 9B. It was sealed. A double deadbolt and a temporary lock from the building. The kind they use when no one's supposed to enter. The peephole was dark. I pressed my ear to the wood. For a long time, I didn't hear anything. Then, faintly, I caught something. Not a voice. A sound. The ringing of a landline. 2 rings. Then silence. I stepped back and stared at the door. I wanted to tell myself I imagined it. That sound doesn't carry like that through 2 locked doors and 6 inches of plaster. But I remembered something. Mrs. Lockwood never had a cell phone. She still used an old rotary landline, the kind with the coiled cord and beige plastic. Said she didn't trust those little screens. So how was I getting messages from her number? The next day, I asked the super if the unit had been rented out. He shook his head. Still empty. Families dragging their feet clearing it out. I asked if anyone had been inside recently. He paused, then said. No. But the motion light in there's been tripping at night. Probably faulty sensor. I didn't respond. That night, I got another voicemail. Just 4 words. He's using her voice. That one broke something in me. Because until then, part of me wanted to believe it was her. That maybe Mrs. Lockwood hadn't passed, or that her phone had somehow kept fragments of her, a ghost in the machine. But that message, it sounded different. Lower. The voice rasped. Like someone using vocal cords that didn't belong to them. I didn't sleep at all. And at 3:17 a.m., I got a final message. No breathing this time. No background noise. Just a whisper, soft and deliberate. Let me in. I don't remember falling asleep. But I remember waking up. 3:40 a.m. Apartment dead silent. I was still on the couch, phone in hand, screen dimmed. For a few seconds, everything felt still. But not in a peaceful way. Like the air was holding its breath. I checked my call log again. The number had called 2 more times while I was out. Voicemails left. But now they were gone. Deleted. Not by me. I opened the voice recorder app. I'd set it up earlier out of paranoia, just left it running on the counter. One long file, just under 2 hours. I put in my earbuds and hit play. Most of it was nothing, ambient room tone, fridge hum, a distant siren outside. Then I heard it. Somewhere around 3:17 a.m. Footsteps. Soft. Slippered. On tile. But I live alone. And I don't wear slippers. Then I heard the sound of a lock turning. Slow. Careful. But I never unlocked the door. Then, breathing. The same as in the voicemails. But closer now. Inside. And then a voice. Not hers. Not mine. It's warmer in here. I stopped the playback. I didn't move for what felt like an hour. Just stared at my front door, the deadbolt, the chain. Everything still locked. But the sound, it was too close to be fake. Too personal. I backed up the audio and played it again. Same moment. Same line. But now, just before the whisper, there was something else. A faint sound layered beneath. I boosted the volume and slowed the file. And I heard it. A landline. Ringing. From inside the room. I called the super the next morning. Told him I was hearing strange things from 9B. He said again that the unit was empty. That it hadn't been entered in weeks. I asked if they'd ever removed the phone. He paused. What phone? Mrs. Lockwood's landline. The rotary. Another pause. Then. There wasn't one. Her niece said they never found a phone in there. Only an empty jack. That night, I came home to a package outside my door. No return address. Inside was an old answering machine. The kind with cassette tapes. It smelled like dust and plastic. The tape inside was labeled 9B. My handwriting. But I'd never owned one of these. I'd never written that label. I didn't plug it in. I put it in the dumpster 3 blocks away and left the city 2 weeks later. I changed my number. Didn't leave a forwarding address. But last month, I got a call. New phone. New SIM. Random out-of-state number. No voicemail this time. Just a voice on the line. Daniel, the hallway's dark again. Then silence. And now, some nights, when I lie in bed, perfectly still, I swear I can hear the soft click of an answering machine. Playing in the next room.